Welcome to the Healing Heart podcast, where all healing is always a matter of the heart. I'm your host, Donna Campbell, also known as the Mind Whisperer, interviewing guest experts on all matters of healing. Hi, everybody, and welcome back here to the Healing Heart podcast. And I am your host, Donna Campbell. Now, my guest today is truly exceptional. And I have been waiting a while, just a little while, to even do this podcast recording because it's something that I absolutely love to do. But it's all about writing and how to heal with writing. So my guest is Alyssa Berthiaume. She is a mompreneur, author, ghostwriter, and writing guide with a superpower for hearing between the lines and capturing the voice of her clients. She is the CEO and lady boss owner of The Writing Place, The Right Place, Right Time, her virtual boutique of book coaching and ghostwriting services for brilliant, brave, and badass folks ready to change the effing world with their stories. She is also the author of Dear Universe, I Get It Now, Letters of the Art and Journey of Being Brave and Being Me. And if you can catch her away from the keyboard, she's probably drinking, I love this, maple lattes, watching The Princess Bride for the 1000th time, or solving the last hunt-a-killer case, or just plain having fun with her partner and her son. So welcome to the Healing Heart podcast, Alyssa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell us, how did you get involved with what you do with ghostwriting and writing for you? So share with us a little bit of your journey.
So the Cliff Notes version is I was about 5 when I realized that I wanted to grow up and be a writer. Mm-hmm. And I kind of traversed that path all along. I ended up getting my undergraduate degree in creative writing, and I got my MFA in grad school, my Master's of Fine Arts in creative writing. And then there was kind of a windy, twisty road after that. Mm-hmm. Lots of different types of jobs and fields and industries before I finally kind of went out on my own in 2019, originally as a copywriter and content writer. And I found that I was really happy doing that for a while, but I was still feeling called to do books, like work with books. Mm-hmm. And I realized in the copywriting and content writing with clients that I was actually ghostwriting because I was pretending to be them, essentially. I was taking on their voice, their brand, their message, and really writing material as though I were them and they were putting their name on it and sending it out to their audience. And I was like, oh, this is ghostwriting. It's just not books. And in that, I actually had a client who had a really great relationship with me. She was ready to write her first book. And she said, hey, would you write my first book for me? And so that happened kind of organically as a result of the relationship we had. I was also working on Dear Universe, I Get It Now at the same time. So I was really steeped in working on my book when she asked me to work on hers. And at the same time, somebody else introduced me to a woman who needed coaching on working on her memoir. And that was what I studied in my master's degree. And so all the stars kind of aligned in this same year. And that's how I found myself kind of moving away from copy and content over to book coaching and ghostwriting. And I haven't looked back.
Yeah. Wow. That's just phenomenal there. And you're absolutely right, because whenever you're doing something for another person, it's like you're that person, especially with ghostwriting, whether it's content or other things such as the books. Now, one of the things that you say here is a superpower for hearing between the lines and capturing the voice of your clients. What do you hear? What do you listen for when you're working with your clients?
So this is where I tap into my background in psychology. So I also have this undergraduate degree in psychology and some work experience in community mental health. And I also started a master's program in marriage and family therapy. And I only got through a semester before I realized this is not my path. But in all of those experiences, what was really important was active listening and open-ended questions. Mm-hmm. These were really huge components of really being a good caseworker or a good therapist, was to really tap in and allow the person on the other side of the table to express themselves with these open-ended questions rather than these yes or no questions. It allows them a chance to really speak out loud, kind of let their thoughts go all over the place, and you sit and you kind of really witness what they're doing with their body, their tone, as well as the words that they're using. So when I say that I hear between the lines, what ends up happening is when I'm working with a client on a book, they will say, well, this, that, and the other thing, and they'll be kind of rambling along about the story they think they want to tell, or the message that they think that they want to promote, or and they don't think that they're making any sense, because to them, it's just all of their like swarming thoughts are now being verbalized. And what happens when we've got all these ideas and we're finally verbalizing them the first time is they kind of come out like a disorganized, chaotic mess. What I'm able to do is kind of like zero in on the things that they said that all connect, and basically reframe back for them. So what I heard you say was, and then kind of succinctly put the most interesting or insightful or common things that they've addressed in all of that, rambling, and say, is this what you mean? And almost every single time they'll go, yes, how did you put that together? And it's really the act of listening and the being curious and being open-minded and listening for the things that are being said that they don't realize that they're saying.
Right. So with that, when you're listening to another one speak and you're absorbing all their thought processes to hear what's underneath it, I always think that it's, what's underneath the mask. What are they really trying to say? Because as a healer, that you have your set of words, but there's an energy and vibration that always comes through with the tone, the inflection to what's really going on intuitively with them. With that, I'm assuming, I'm thinking it's kind of a similar process in that, because you're underneath or listening to intuitively, like you said, between the lines. So what were some of the biggest surprises that you had maybe working with a client, ghostwriting, and you thought it was like maybe topic A, and then when it comes out, it's really like topic B? Did you have any surprises or things like that?
So I think what inevitably happens a lot of the time, especially with the work that's more personal, so the memoir, or even people who are working on business books, but they're incorporating personal story into business books, is what we end up discovering is that the thing that they think, like the superficial line, is actually just a superficial line. Like it's too high level and they haven't dug deeper. So I had one client who came to me, she wanted to work on a memoir, and it was a grief journey. She had lost her son. She wanted to tell the story of navigating through her grief. And she was almost certain that the whole book was truly about how her golden retrievers had kind of helped in the process of healing in this therapeutic way. And what she kept talking about, however, in some of our coaching calls, was how she was still spiritually connecting with her son, and how her son was really coming through a lot during this grief journey. And finally, at one point, I said to her, do you think at all that maybe the golden retrievers weren't the only people or only beings that were leading you along the path, and that maybe this isn't just about the golden retrievers? And she was like, I've really been getting that nudge. And I just, she kind of already intuitively knew and was connected with that idea, but she was so kind of positioned towards this one angle of the book because of some other things in her life and in her current season, that she almost didn't want to kind of like detach from that initial idea, even though intuitively like she was being called in this other direction. So there's something like that that's been interesting, where people come in with one idea and then we kind of recalibrate and we end up somewhere else entirely.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what I'm really fascinated with the process that you use with everyone through the coaching and capturing the voice, knowing how to position everything in the book, when they have that realization and that aha moment, or like with the last client, you said that little nudge of, well, maybe there's something more to this. How do they shift and change? Do they shift and change the client? And do they have like a profound healing moment?
Yeah. So with my process, I really believe that the more upfront work we can do in the beginning of really kind of what I say is laying the foundation of the book first, kind of helps us understand the direction we're heading with the manuscript, and also allows for a lot of that kind of emotional processing in the beginning. And that's not to say that we won't do emotional processing as the manuscript is actually being written, but for several who come and start with me kind of at ground zero, with no plan, no foundation, no outline or anything like that, this is the first time that they're actually voicing pieces of their story out loud to somebody that's not family or friends. And sometimes I'm actually somebody who ends up knowing things that they haven't even shared with spouses or partners of several years. So I have this very kind of sacred and honored position in my client's life where I learn very deep and personal things that they haven't really shared, and I have to hold space for that. But in there, being able to say them out loud, that alone feels like a weight that's been kind of released for them, because they're not carrying it around inside, knowing that like they're harboring that memory and the energy of that memory. They're now kind of sharing it with somebody else. And just the power of externalizing something we've been through allows us to feel freer and a little bit lighter. But the other thing that ends up happening as we are actually working to craft those individual experiences into a book is they start to see how the narrative is actually different now than what they always thought the narrative was before. Because now that we're looking at, well, how do we tell the story in a way that a reader will be able to see parts of their own journey in the client's journey? They see their journey differently than they've seen it before. And now they realize their own resiliency or strength or power or perseverance. And instead of it feeling like this dark, heavy, mass that's been like attached to them, they start to see more of the gratefulness or silver linings or blessings that have kind of come out of suffering or pain or loss. And that in and of itself can be very healing, to them personally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to hold this next thought right here because we are going to have to take that quick sponsor break here. Our guest is Alyssa, and we are talking about ghostwriting and how her clients have healed through sharing of their story. So we'll be right back in just a moment. Get what you always wanted. Abundant life is possible. Transform your lifestyle in just weeks with the most innovative system developed for heart-centered business professionals who seek change today. You are one step away from creating infinite prosperity, happiness, and love. Grab your bonus link now that's in the show notes. All right, welcome back, everybody, here to the Healing Heart podcast. And my guest today is Alyssa, and we are talking about ghostwriting and having that superpower to read between the lines, to understand the intention of the client, but also healing when they put their memories into words. And so, Alyssa, you were talking about having that silver lining gift, or the good things that came out of, it's my wording, silver lining gifts for the different clients when they go through sharing their stories. What are some of the best healing moments that you can remember healing after a client felt safe, they trusted you, they opened up, they shared their story? What was some of they get the lightness, but what are some of those best stories for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm working with a client right now, and we are working on his memoir of his healing journey after discovering repressed memories of child sexual abuse by a priest at his school when he was a boy. And it's been interesting to watch him shift over the last few months, to being a little bit shaky in his voice when he speaks, very triggered each time we have to kind of dive into details or talk about things, to where he is now, where he's openly ready to, come into a live interview with me in a couple of weeks and publicly speak about his journey. And the way that he described it recently was that he feels like he's chiseling away at a harder exterior to kind of step into the new season of being a survivor and an advocate for other people who have experienced this. So I guess it's not a specific moment necessarily, but more like watching the evolution. Because I do a lot of, face-to-face Zoom calls. I'm very rarely, on the phone, just talking to the other person by voice. And so you can see how a person, stands or sits a little bit more firmly, or, they talk a little bit more confidently, or they laugh a little bit more in our work together. And that's always a good sign that there's been some healing that's happened. Because just their presence and their essence has shifted and changed. Probably one of the most special memories in the last year or so. So the woman I was talking about earlier, who was writing the memoir about losing her son and her grief journey, luckily she lives just a couple hours away from me. And when her book came out in the fall, after about 18 months or so of working together through COVID, so we never met in person, I got to go to the book launch and meet her in person, meet people that I knew of through her words, help facilitate the question and answer period with her at the book launch party. And it was a really powerful day for both of us. I felt such pride in what she had created, but also to see her standing there in front of her closest family and friends, knowing where she's been, and have her standing there so beautifully vulnerable, but also powerful, as she talked about not just the journey of healing, but also the journey of writing this book. And what that was just like, I have goosebumps even just like talking about it. It was this really just kind of amazing, awe-striking kind of experience to see her standing there. Like she's memorializing her son every single day in the work that she's doing with now promoting her book. And she's been on this incredible speaking journey in the last however many months, going into hospice groups, support groups, libraries, and she's really touching the lives of people that hear her speak. And it's because she wrote this book.
All right. That I absolutely love, because it sounds like she's really truly on her path and on her journey and doing what she's meant to do, and putting all of this in writing, getting it out of the inside of her out into the world was really the catalyst for the change for that. Yeah. Now, we talk often about, what we do for other people and how we get results for them in terms of healing, but there's always an energetic exchange as well, because I can hear in your voice you have a lot of passion when you're talking about your clients' stories and the transformations they go through. So for you, what are some of those gifts that you receive back from clients, maybe even energetically, after you're done working with them or as you work with them?
My cup always feels so filled when I'm truly connected to a client's experience. I have learned so much about grief, trauma, human evolution of our emotions through some of these various experiences. I've learned new language that I didn't have before, which is such a gift, because it helps me to change the way that I speak to other people, that I might have said something not politically correct or even sensitive prior to what I'm now learning through the stories that my clients are sharing with me. And more than that, like, I'm learning more about how to be a better coach and how to be a better writer in working with them, because I'm learning, what things that I could say are helpful, what tips and tricks I can provide are useful to them, what's not, what formats are good and what aren't, and everybody's a little bit different. So it's never going to be a one size fits all, but with each client, I learn more about my own art, my own ability to heal through the work that I do, the writing process. And I think the thing that I've realized the most recently is just how deeply healing what we do together is. I've come to understand that the book is a byproduct and actually not the primary thing that my clients are receiving out of this work together. What they're first receiving is the intrinsic value and gifts of healing and of being on this journey and of stepping into their next level of being. And the book is almost like the second thing that comes out of it that's really, really great. It's like the evidence of, but it's like not actually the main thing. And so again, it's like, I think to some extent, people are coming to me like, yeah, I want to write a book about my story. And really, maybe what they really need is actually to be seen, heard, and valued. And the book is what they think that they want and need. And truly, it ends up being the second thing that they get.
Right. I love that, to be seen, heard, and valued, which is really the gifts that you're giving through all of the writing and all of the things that you are doing with everyone. So for people out there, how do we get in touch with you if they want to go through their transformational process, get their message to the world, and have that?
So best place is to come over to the website, and then they can get linked over to everything else that exists. So that's the right place, writetime.com. And the first right is WRITE. The second right is RIGHT. So the right place, writetime.com. And there's a page on the website. You just go to guide at the top on the menu. And if people are interested in just getting kind of like the bird's eye view on the process, there's a 5-step writing guide to finishing a memoir that will light up your world in hours. That's free and available to people when they visit.
All right. Absolutely love that. So everyone just go ahead and reach out here to Alyssa as she's been talking. I'm like, maybe I should rewrite parts of my book and just use you. In with what I have produced and what I've sent, because I think you can capture the essence very beautifully. Because often I think if you're self-writing, you're holding your own self back because you don't know how the public's going to perceive it, but you already have that and ready to go, and you know what will work and what doesn't, and what can really help for someone for a healing process. So any last words or anything that you would like to share?
I think the only thing that I would really encourage people to consider is if there are parts of their own personal journey or their story that they haven't voiced yet, to find a way to do that, because it really will help to release some of the negative energy that's being held by holding on to those stories that haven't been voiced. And it doesn't have to be in a book. It could be in a journal. It could be to a friend. It could be outside in the woods to a tree for all I care. But the actual act of using one's voice to say out loud what is or what has been can be incredibly, incredibly powerful.
All right. I love that. I love that. Absolutely beautiful. And for everyone who is listening, we are putting all of that information into the show notes, so you can always get back and connect with Alyssa. And for everyone, make sure you always go have that beautiful day. And thank you, Alyssa, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.